recovered alcoholic. Yeah, there we go. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentle drunks. My name is Kevin Olson. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I want to welcome you all to the fourth dimension. Big book study, that is. Very happy that you guys are here. I know that I'm happy I'm here. I never feel more alive than when I'm sharing the message of Alcoholics Anonymous and the program of recovery that connects us to a God greater than ourselves, a power greater than ourselves that can restore us to sanity and remove our problem. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad to be here with you guys. Welcome anyone who's new, and happy to see some old familiar faces. As we always do, guys, let's kick off with the set-aside prayer. Sing along if you know the words. God, please help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, about me, about my fellow man, about the 12 steps, and please allow me to gain a fresh new vision, perspective, and understanding of what you, what me, what my fellow man, and the 12 steps are all about. Amen. Okay, and as this is the fourth dimension big book study, I always like to read the two parts of our book that refer to the fourth dimension. So first of all, in Bill's story, Bill Wilson writes that I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. Beautiful. And then on page 25, which incidentally, as a fun fact, is my favorite page in the big book, Bill Wilson writes that we have found much of heaven and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. Brothers and sisters, we are going to be catapulted. We are going to be rocketed. And for those who will, for the sake of tradition and custom of the fourth dimension big book study, everyone with your video on, please put one hand up like this. And everybody, please put another hand up like this. And if you're feeling it, everybody go, oh yeah. All right, good stuff, everyone. Shiva, I see your hand is raised, brother. Do you have a question?
I think it automatically goes up if I do this.
The gestures.
Oh, funny.
When I was doing
Oh, I see. AA is out, or not AA, AI has outsmarted us again, it looks like. All right. Okay, well, I'm glad to be here, guys. We're in, I think I probably say this about every chapter in the book, but we're in one of my favorite chapters. I think that this chapter, the chapter more about alcoholism, has some of the most instructive and illustrative examples of alcoholism, and they're very powerful teaching tools. And so we are going to be meeting in this chapter. We're going to meet 4 people. So last week, y'all met the man of 30, right? You guys talked about the man of 30. Tonight, we're going to meet Jim. We're going to meet the jaywalker. And we're going to meet Fred, okay? And in all these scenarios, we're going to see people who suffer from the insanity of alcoholism. Physical allergy manifesting itself in a phenomenon of craving. But I think more importantly, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in my mind rather than in my body. That's where my problem is. I have a thinking problem, okay? I have a learning disability. If you ever hear an alcoholic say, I've learned my lesson, okay? Just get out of the way. Just let them go and don't lend them any money, because we are not people who learn our lessons, okay? We are people who burn ourselves on the fire over and over and over and over. And from the outside looking in, the outside perspective, people looking at us are mystified. That's what our book says. They're mystified when we're picking up a drink again. Mystified. After everything that you've been through, Kevin, after everything you've done, why would you be all lit up again? I remember one time I took this new job. So I had been working in the restaurant industry for a long time, and I took this new job with the government. And what we had to do was drive around to all these museums in southern Alberta, all these old, heritage sites and everything, and take tourists there and explain it to them. So day one of this thing was taking getting oriented. So we were all in this little bus. There was like 10 of us crammed in this little van on a hot summer day driving around southern Alberta. Anyway, anytime, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm drinking, when I get a new job, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to go celebrate my new job, So that's what I did the night before. And unfortunately, that day I woke up late and I was late for the thing, and they came and picked me up, and I was just sicker and more hungover than a dog in this hot van all day long. And one of the women in the thing told me, Kevin, you just smelled like alcohol all day long. Like you just reeked of alcohol. And that night, I remember, because I felt so bad about what I had done, I only know one thing to do when I feel that bad, and that's go drink more. So that's what I did. And that night, I bumped into this woman who had been in the van with me all day long. And she saw I was drunker the night after than I was the night before. And she was absolutely baffled. How you must be insane. Not insane. Well, I am insane. It's a form of insanity called alcoholism. I'm not a crazy person. I am an alcoholic. And my main problem centers in my mind rather than in my body. I'm unable to recall with sufficient force the memory, the pain and humiliation of a week or a month or even a night ago. I'm without defense against the first drink. Okay. Anyone here ever heard the saying, just don't drink no matter what in AA? Like that's a tool that we're going to be given. Like, just don't drink no matter what. Like, man, I drink no matter what. Okay, I don't have a drink of choice. I have a drink of no choice. My drink of no choice was alcohol. That's my drug of no choice, is my drug of alcohol. Okay, I don't control it. It controls me. Okay, and when it gets its hooks into me, I'm done for. So anyway, guys, tonight we're gonna probably review a little bit of There Is a Solution. I'm gonna touch on a couple of things that we talked about in the chapter, There Is a Solution, for sure. But for us tonight, in particular, guys, we're going to go through the chapter More About Alcoholism. Page 34 is where we are for those who are unable to drink moderately. Okay. And I just want to acknowledge there's a person here that is you guys are all special to me, okay? I want to be clear about that. But there's a fellow on the call right now, Jacob Martin. I know he's got his video off and everything, but I just want to welcome Jacob. I met Jacob just over the weekend in Lloydminster, and had a chance to spend some time with him. And Jacob, I know you're listening in the back of your crew truck right now, but I just want you to know I'm really, really happy you're here. And I want to share something that Jacob and I talked about. This is in the chapter More About Alcoholism. You all know the place in the chapter More About Alcoholism where it talks about the alcoholic is like a man with a headache who beats himself in the head with a hammer so he doesn't feel the ache. Okay, you guys know the part that I'm talking about. Okay. And, I read that for years, thinking that, the problem is there in that scenario that I'm a guy who beats myself in the head with a hammer. And if I could just stop beating myself in the head with a hammer, everything would be fine. And that all I need, maybe if someone could just come and take the hammer away, just take the hammer away from me and I'll be fine. And it was really only just in the last couple of years that I realized in that analogy, a man who beats himself in the head with a hammer so he can't feel the headache. The problem is not the hammer, and it's not that I hit myself in the head with a hammer. The problem is the headache. Okay? My problem is that you take that hammer away from me and I'm left with this throbbing headache. Okay? And Alcoholics Anonymous offers us a way to feel ease and comfort away from that headache. Alcoholics Anonymous is like a 12-step pain removal program. Okay, it removes the headache. If I remove the headache, why would I beat myself in the head with a hammer if I don't have a headache? And this is something that Jacob and I talked at length about over the weekend, and I was glad to spend time with him, and I'm glad he's here tonight. So anyway, back to page, we're going to be on page 34. For those who are unable to drink moderately. And we're going to talk now about quitting drinking upon a non-spiritual basis. Okay. And here we're gonna revisit a conversation that we had last week. Maybe it was even 2 weeks ago. The moderate drinker, the heavy drinker, and the real alcoholic. We're gonna revisit this conversation. I want to share a couple more things with you. So with that said, Brad, page 34, over to you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for reading, Brad. For those who are unable to drink moderately.
Thanks for having me. Hey, everybody. I'm Brad Soto, recovered alcoholic. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. We're assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. Whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent to which he has already lost the power to choose whether he will drink or not. Many of us felt that we had plenty of character. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever. Yet we found it impossible. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it, this utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish.
Okay, so we're going to talk now about what are some non-spiritual ways that someone might choose to stop drinking, okay? Because I think it's important to distinguish what are examples of non-spiritual ways versus the ways that we utilize in Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? Because I promise you, some of these non-spiritual ways of stopping drinking I'm going to share with you are things that you have heard in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? And I'm really going to encourage you to be mindful of this and hear it, okay? And think about some of these things and make sure if you are at a meeting and someone's talking about some of this stuff as a means of stopping drinking, that if there's any newcomers there, you get your hands on those newcomers and you let them know that that is incorrect information. Okay, I think this is a really important thing to understand. Okay, because if they are a real alcoholic, trying some of these non-spiritual ways of stopping drinking is going to kill them, like it almost did me for many, many years. Okay, so just before we get into that, I just want to just go through this again. And I don't think that I shared this last time that we met. I have it here somewhere. There we go. Okay, I don't think that I shared this last time. Brad, do you recall if I shared this with everyone last time?
I don't think so. I don't think we did.
Okay, this is a matrix, guys, and this is just something that I developed in terms of my understanding of what's the difference between a normal drinker, a heavy or normal or moderate drinker, the heavy drinker, the real alcoholic, and then neurotic. And I'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, so first of all, there are people in the world who are spiritually fit, okay? They have all their spiritual faculties about them, and they also are able to control the amount that they drink every time that they drink, okay? So they're spiritually fit, and they do not suffer from the physical allergy when they drink alcohol. They don't get into trouble when they drink. Those are what we call normal, moderate drinkers, okay? Spiritually fit, and in terms of control and drinking control, they're fine, okay? Then we have people who are spiritually fit inside, and they suffer from the physical allergy or inability to control alcohol once they start drinking. Okay, and our book defines these people as heavy drinkers, okay? So spiritually, they are not all restless, irritable, and discontent when they get sober. But when they drink, our book even says that it might be troublesome for them. They may even look like an alcoholic for a period of time. But if given sufficient reason, ill health, warning of a doctor, loss of job or whatever becomes operative, they can stop or moderate, even though it might be difficult for them, okay? But here's the difference. When I take alcohol away from a heavy drinker, because they don't suffer from spiritual sickness, they're fine. They stop drinking and they get better. I stop drinking and I get worse. Why? Because I am not spiritually fit. okay, on my own. My baseline default mechanism is crazy, okay? I was born disappointed with the world, okay? I was born restless, irritable, and discontent from the jump, man, okay? And when I started drinking, I didn't find a problem, I found a solution. The first one I ever had to this spiritual sickness. I suffer from emotions that make life difficult, and drinking always seemed to soothe those emotions. Okay. And that's what I always reached for. So you take alcohol away from me, I don't get better, I get worse. So again, just to recap, people who are spiritually fit and are able to control their drinking are normal drinkers. People who don't have control when they drink, but they are spiritually fit, we call those heavy drinkers. And this is going to become operative in a minute when we talk about non-spiritual ways that people will stop drinking, okay? Because a non-spiritual way will work for someone who is a heavy drinker. It will not work for me, because when I try some of these non-spiritual methods of getting sober, I am left feeling restless, irritable, and discontent, filled with terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair, anger, resentment, depression, and suicidal. Every time I tried one of these non-spiritual ways, and you'll understand what I mean in a moment. The last thing I want to say here is that we do see people from time to time. We've all seen people who are able to control the amount that they drink. They don't have any problem drinking, but they do suffer. They seem to suffer from some level of spiritual sickness, okay? So they are not alcoholics, but they seem to suffer from some of the same symptoms that we suffer from. And those are people that we call, and that psychiatry calls, neurotic, okay? So I just wanted to highlight that. That's how I like to think of it. That's what I share with newcomers, and I think that's good for us to go through again before we get into this discussion about non-spiritual ways that people may try and stop drinking. So incidentally, here are 9 examples. This is a definition of someone who is neurotic, okay? This is not a definition of someone who is alcoholic. This is a definition of someone who is neurotic, according to psychiatry. They do not have a drinking problem, okay? But this is how they present in psychiatry. Let me know if this sounds familiar to you, okay? Number 1, anxiety and apprehension. Number 2, excessive worry and guilt. 3, a tendency towards more negative emotions and reactions. 4, irritability and anger. 5, low self-esteem and self-consciousness. 6, poor response to stress. 7, I love this one, an interpretation of everyday situations as threatening. Okay, this is like my step 5. Okay, but just to be clear, this is not someone who is an alcoholic. Okay, this is the description of someone who is a neurotic. In order for me to be an alcoholic, there are 2 things that must be present. Okay, this spiritual sickness at base and a physical allergy to alcohol. The combination of those 2 things will warp my mind into an inability to distinguish the true from the false, and the insanity and the mental obsession of alcoholism. Okay, so with all that said, guys, let's discuss now some non-spiritual ways that someone might try to stop drinking. I'll start the conversation, okay? I just need to go to the gym more often. I joined a volleyball team and started getting a lot of exercise, and that was good enough for me to stop drinking. Anyone here ever heard something like that in a room of AA? I just need to get more exercise and I'll be fine, okay? Would that possibly work for someone who does not suffer from a spiritual sickness because they are a heavy drinker? Yes. Going to the gym and getting more exercise and taking up jogging might work real well. And hey, let's be clear. I'm a gym guy. I go to the gym. Okay. I'm not against jogging. Okay. But it is not a solution for alcoholism that we should be sharing in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. You guys with me on that? So that's one example. Okay. Let's talk about another example. And then I want to get at least three from you guys. Okay. I'm going to get some volunteers. So you guys be thinking about it. How about this? I went and saw a therapist. I needed to go see a therapist, and I used therapy as my solution for alcoholism. Would you all agree? First of all, that's depending on the therapist. If it's a psychologist, a psychoanalyst, would you agree that that is a non-spiritual way of trying to combat drinking? Would you guys agree with that? Yes. Okay. So, might going to a therapist work for a heavy drinker? Yes, that might work. Will it work for an alcoholic who is spiritually sick, restless, irritable, and discontent at default? Well, let me put it to you this way. Some of you may or may not know, I'm the only child of a therapist. Okay. I've had a therapist on retainer since I was 2 years old. Okay. Let me tell you, therapy ain't a cure for alcoholism. It might be a really good cure for someone who is a problem drinker or dealing with a heavy drinking problem. But for someone who at base their problem is a spiritual problem, therapy, not a solution. It can be good in addition to. That's the key, guys. Okay. In addition to. Go read page 133 in our book, man. Okay. You'll find out what I mean. In addition to a solid foundation and a 12-step program of recovery called Alcoholics Anonymous. Solid, rock solid. Then, yes, then go to the gym. Yes, then go see a therapist. Okay. And this really helped solidify in my mind, because the problem is, man, I was trying to put AA together like little trail of breadcrumbs from all the nonsense that I was hearing in 3-topic disgusting meetings. Okay. I needed to get down to the core of our program. The core of our program is in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And from there, all I needed to do was line up what I'm hearing in meetings versus what I'm reading in the book. Okay. The book is the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. We used to be a book that gave rise to meetings. And a lot of times, I think today, we're just a bunch of meetings that once in a while occasionally have a book. You guys understand what I'm saying? I know you do. I know you do. I love seeing Gail nod. When Gail nods, I know I'm on the right track. I know. All right. Okay, so now from you guys, I want to hear, what are 3 other non-spiritual ways that maybe you've tried or you've heard or others have said might be a way to combat alcoholism, whether a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis? Okay, anyone? Karen, you're muted, Karen. But
I know, I'm getting there. I've heard some people smoke pot.
yeah, that would be a very non-spiritual way.
Well, yeah,
yes. Especially in California. In Canada, Karen, I know you're from Laguna Beach. We call that California sober in AA.
Well, I mean, they think that it's going to help them quit drinking, and then they're going to quit doing whatever. But yeah, I've heard of that before.
That's a great example. Karen. Guys, I promise you one thing. Alcoholics should not do drugs. Okay. When I do drugs, I do them alcoholically. Okay. We have a singleness of purpose here in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I don't do anything a little bit. When I smoke pot, I start like, I can't go to the dentist without smoking pot. Like I smoke a joint the size of my thumb before I can, go to the bank. Like I can't, so anyway, that's a great example, Karen. Anyone else, a non-spiritual way of, okay, Richard.
I got a good one for you. Needle point.
Bingo. All right, perfect. Okay. And elaborate on that.
Well, when I first got to AA, I used to go to this meeting, and they didn't have no AA books there, but they had a lot of people doing needle point and talking about their problems. And I thought maybe if I could figure out how to needle point, that would keep me sober. But it turns out that I would drink while needle pointing.
Yeah. Try going to Richard, try going to our Narcotics Anonymous meeting and suggesting needlepoint.
Hands are a little
Hey-o.
shaky.
Okay, that's excellent. That's a perfect example, Richard. Okay. Now, Richard and I have nothing against needlepoint. Okay. And if you're here and you're doing needlepoint, like that's fine. Needlepoint is great. In addition to, okay, that's the mantra today, guys. Okay, that is what we're cheering out loud here. So, get a gym pass, sure. In addition to, okay, I want to see your lips moving. Okay, everybody with me now. I'm going to go see a therapist. Great. In addition to, come on, guys. I'm not kidding around. I'm not kidding around. Okay, I'm going to start needle pointing. Great. In addition to the solid foundation in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Look, guys, bottom line, solid foundation in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I can't do anything. This is a big world, and God wants us to do amazing things. Take away my difficulties. That victory over them may bear witness to those that I will help. Of your power, your massive power. Solid foundation in 12 steps, we can do anything. Okay, one more, anyone?
I've heard some people, I got nothing against it. I've heard people say, yoga, I'm just learned to love myself.
Oh, 100%, Gail. Those are two separate ones. So yes, yoga.
And I got nothing against yoga and that, because I have a couple friends who are right from India, yoga masters. So
Sure.
and it works for them in addition to, right?
Sure. Yeah. And you know, and here's the thing, like, yes, in addition to, Gail, and here's the thing, like yoga, I got nothing against it. Being flexible is good. Okay. And there is some spiritual component to yoga, which is great. But the problem, even something like, you know, I'm going to start going to church on a regular basis, depending on the practice, and it doesn't matter if it's Buddhism, if it's Islam, if it's Christianity, whatever it is, until I have gone through the process that Alcoholics Anonymous requires of emptying out, of discarding, uncovering, and discovering myself. Okay. But the first thing I have to do is uncover and discard. That's what Chuck Chamberlain used to say. Uncover, discard, and discover. Okay. Until I've gone through that process, it doesn't matter what yoga master or guru I'm talking to, there's not going to be any connection. It's like I've got that bad Wi-Fi connection we talked about. Okay. Yeah, you're totally right, Gail. And then the learning to love myself thing, you know, it's all about self-love. All I'm going to say about that right now is that I'm a devotee, a disciple, whatever you want to say, of St. Francis of Assisi, in particularly the step 11 prayer. And he says, God's grant that I may seek to love rather than to be loved. Okay. And I think that's where the magic of life comes from, not by learning self-love. Okay. Because selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of my trouble. And I can take something as pure and as well-meaning as self-love and turn it into self-sick obsession instantly. And that's just me. That's because I suffer from defects of character like selfishness and self-centeredness. So self-love might work real great for some people. It doesn't work for me. Okay. Because anytime I'm focused on myself, I'm in danger. The most dangerous place in the world is me sitting at home alone thinking about myself. Most dangerous place in the world, even if I'm thinking about how much I love myself. Okay. I promise you, I'm in a lot of trouble. I need to be thinking about you. When I'm concerned with your life, I'm no longer concerned about my own life. Okay. And being concerned about my own life is what makes me crazy. So I practice thinking about how I can love others. And then when I learn to love others, I have experienced an indescribable joy and love of God has showered down on me and within me and from me, unlike anything I've ever known. Better than the best self-love I've ever encountered. So with that said, guys, let's talk about, let's try and think up one more thing. So here's one: geographical. Okay, I'm going to move from here to there. That's a non-spiritual way of stopping drinking. Okay, I'm going to quit my job. My problem is I work in those restaurants. I'm going to go get a job with the government like I did. That'll solve my problem, man. I didn't make it to the second day. I didn't make it to the second day of that job. I just told you the story. I was almost blackout drunk in the damn van walking around to like, oh, that was a horrible day. Okay. Yeah. And it's just terrible. Shame, guilt and shame, man. Guilt and shame doesn't make me want to get sober. Guilt and shame makes me want to drink to oblivion, man. Okay. What's another thing? Well, let's think of one more. Here's one. This is a really sad one that I know, and this is not, I have a sponsee who is a woman. Like it's a long story. They were a woman. They're now non-binary. They're one of the best AA sponsees I have. But they at one point got pregnant as an attempt to stop drinking, and they did stop drinking for 9 months and 17 minutes. Okay. And just boom, just gone immediately like that. That is an example of a non-spiritual way that always comes close to my heart. Brad, you got another one for us, buddy?
How about I will be okay if I just keep coming back to a meeting every single day, or 2 or 3 or 4 of them. Won't I be okay then? If I just keep
100%, Brad. Just coming to AA and sitting around AA thinking that I'm gonna
take it up space, breathe it in the air.
And
Watching
get
you guys
well
get
the
sober.
spiritual experience that other people have had. That's a perfect example. There's nothing spiritual about that at all. I'm just a taker, just like I always have been. And I did that in
Cut
AA
off.
long time. Okay, well, that's enough, guys. I think we've kind of made the point there, and it's nice, we've made it through a whole paragraph so far. So good job, Kevin. Good. Okay, so let's keep reading, Brad.
How then shall we help our readers determine to their own satisfaction whether they are one of us? The experiment of quitting for a period of time will be helpful, but we think we can render an even greater service to alcoholic sufferers and perhaps to the medical fraternity. So we shall describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking, for obviously this is the crux of the problem. What sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink? Friends,
and guys, I love that. That's one of my favorite ways to speak about alcoholism. It's a desperate experiment. It's a desperate experiment. When I relapse, it is a desperate experiment. And I'm trying to prove that this time it'll be different. That's the experiment. The experiment fails every time. Okay. But it's desperate. Where does that desperation come from? What am I desperate to do? That desperation comes from that spiritual sickness. The restlessness, irritability, and discontent is so painful. My grand sponsor Clancy used to say, it's so bad when we're drinking, we got to get sober, right? We all know that. But then what people don't understand is that it's so bad when we're sober that I have to drink again to preserve my sanity. Okay. I believe that. So Brad, back to you. We're going to talk about Jim now. Let's meet Jim.
Friends who have reasoned with him after a spree which has brought him to the point of divorce or bankruptcy are mystified when he walks directly into a saloon. Why does he? Of what is he thinking? Our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. This man has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency. He had a commendable World War record. He is a good salesman. Everybody likes him. He is an intelligent man, normal so far as we can see, except for a nervous disposition. He did no drinking until he was 35. In a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated that he had to be committed. On leaving the asylum, he came into contact with us. We told him what we knew of alcoholism and the answer we had found. He made a beginning, his family was reassembled, and he began to work as a salesman for the business he had lost through drinking. All went well for a time, but he felt
Okay.
his
This is
spiritual
over.
life. To his consternation, he found
Oh, wait, Brad, sorry. It just something, someone just cut out there for a minute. I need you to read that part again because it's key. All went well for a while. Okay. If this isn't the the Hallmark poster card of my alcoholism. All went well for a while, but
he failed to enlarge his spiritual life.
and that just means one thing. He did not do the 12 steps. And now he may have sat around and talked about the 12 steps. He may even be able to quote to you what the 12 steps are, but he did not perfect and enlarge. He did not enlarge his spiritual life. He did not do D-O. He did not do the 12 steps. That's what that means. And as a result, he's about to get drunk. Okay.
To his consternation, he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. On each of these occasions, we worked with him, reviewing carefully what had happened. He agreed he was a real alcoholic and in a serious condition. He knew he faced another trip to the asylum if he kept on. Moreover, he would lose his family for whom he had a deep affection. Yet he got drunk again. We asked him to
Okay,
tell
so
us.
I just want to point out here as well, guys, okay, that this is for any of you who have relapsed before and you're coming back to AA. I know, Jacob, we talked over the weekend, you've been to AA before and drank again. Listen, brother, the examples of the people that we're talking about right now, he got drunk half a dozen times. So how many times is that? 6 times. Now he relapsed again. He drank again, okay? And these are also good members of AA. They're not cutting him loose, man. Okay. They're not cutting him loose. They're still working with him. Okay. Even after 7 times. Okay. So anyway, yeah, Brad, back to you.
We asked him to tell us exactly how it happened. This is his story. I came to work on Tuesday morning. I remember I felt irritated that I had to be a salesman for a concern I once owned. I had a few words for the boss, but nothing serious. Then I decided to drive into the country and see one of my prospects for a car. On the way, I felt hungry, so I stopped at a roadside place where they have a bar. I had no intention of drinking. I just thought I would get a sandwich. I also had the notion that I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar for I had been going to it for years. I had eaten there many times during the months I was sober. I sat down at a table and ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. Still no thought of drinking. I ordered another sandwich and decided to have another glass of milk.
Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a minute. Okay. So here's a guy who has not enlarged his spiritual life. He talks about I came to work on Tuesday morning. Okay. And it's like, okay, so Tuesday, what happened on Monday? Okay. Now I had a few words with the boss. Okay. And what do you think the boss wanted to know? Like, where were you yesterday? Okay. But what does it say? I felt irritated. So we can see the symptoms, the outside symptoms, from the outside looking in at this guy. We don't know what it's like inside of his head, but we can start to see the restlessness, irritability, and discontent already. Okay. He's a great salesman. Everyone knows him, but he has a nervous disposition. Okay. He feels irritated now. He has to work for someone that a concern that he used to own. Okay. What do we call that? We call that a resentment. He resents that. Resentment's the #1 killer. Okay. And so now this thing about finding a customer at a place at a restaurant, I always thought that was a little suspect. But I came to learn in the 1930s when they sold cars, they didn't have car lots like they do now. Okay. The way that they would sell cars is a salesman would go drive the Ford model that he was selling, and he would drive it around to other people and then sell the car that way. So that's how they did it back then. They didn't have one big car lot. So that checks out. Okay. He's hungry. Sandwich, milk, great. He thinks I'll have another sandwich. I'll have more milk. Okay. Okay. So if you're hungry enough, that's all fine. Everything right now up to this point is normal, sane thinking. A little restless, irritable, and discontent, but still, what does he say? No intention of drinking. That is so key to understand here. He has no intention of drinking. And then the next 3 words, guys, in the next paragraph are, to my mind, 3 of the most important words in our book. Okay? Suddenly, boom, he's a dead man. A dead man. Okay? Particularly in this day and age, brothers and sisters, where few of us are fortunate enough to be what we call pure alcoholics. A lot of us dabble in that other side of the party. Okay, we dabble in the other side of that scenario. Okay, I see some nodding heads. Okay, those other dry goods, those non-conference approved commodities. Okay, and all it takes in the day and age of fentanyl is 1 bad dose and we are dead. Suddenly, and it doesn't say suddenly the thought, it doesn't say suddenly the drink. It doesn't say suddenly the bar. It doesn't say suddenly the drugs. What does it say? It says suddenly the thought. And he is stone cold sober right now, man. Sandwich and milk. That's what he's on right now. Suddenly the thought. Okay. Sometimes people will erroneously describe the mental obsession as, when I get sober, I'm thinking about it all the time, all the time, all the time. I can't stop thinking about it. Anyone here ever heard that in AA? It's not the case. Look at Jim. Is he thinking about it? Not at all. No intention of drinking. And suddenly the thought. Brad, back to you. Please read that paragraph for us.
Suddenly the thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. I ordered a whiskey and I poured it into the milk. I vaguely sensed I was not being any too smart, but I felt reassured as I was taking the whiskey on a full stomach. The experiment went so well that I ordered another whiskey and poured it into more milk. That didn't seem to bother me, so I tried another.
Of course, because now he's triggered the physical allergy. Now the drink is taking him. He's not taking the drinks. The drink is taking him. And by the way, that line, I vaguely sensed I wasn't being any too smart. Someday, I mean, that could be my battle cry. It should be on my tombstone one day. Kevin Olson, born and died, vaguely sensed he wasn't being too smart. Okay? I'm telling you, man, that applies to a lot more things than just taking that first drink. I've done a lot of things where I vaguely sensed I wasn't being too smart and I went ahead and did it anyway. And I see some laughing faces. I know. It's because that's God's voice, man. God's voice is saying to us very quietly, this is probably not a good idea. That's what that vague sense is. Okay? But sometimes we got to go touch the fire ourselves and get burned and figure it out. And character building rarely comes to me through virtue. Character building typically comes through pain for me. So anyway, Brad, back to you. Thank you.
Thus started one more journey to the asylum for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, the loss of family and position, to say nothing of that intense mental and physical suffering which drinking always caused him. He had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic, yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk.
So when it says he had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic, what that means is that he probably knew the cycle of alcoholism that we talk so much about. He knew it as well as anyone. He'd been with those AAs, gone through it dozens of times, reviewed physical allergy, mental obsession, entering the well-known stage of a spree. Yep, got it, man. I got it. Okay? That's self-knowledge. That is not a solution to alcoholism. The solution to alcoholism comes in applying the rest of the 12 steps and having a spiritual awakening as the result of that work. That is our solution for alcoholism, not just learning that cycle. That's what Jim did, and that's why all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside. Haven't you ever done that before? You got every reason in the world to stay sober, and they're just easily pushed aside, aren't they? Man, I know I've done the same thing. And thank God I'm no longer relying on my own power to keep myself sober, because I can't do it. Okay. I've connected to a power greater than myself. Okay. Back to you, Brad.
Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this plain insanity. How can such a lack of proportion of the ability to think straight be called anything else? You may think this an extreme case. To us, it is not far-fetched, for this kind of thinking has been characteristic of every single one of us. We have sometimes reflected more than Jim did upon the consequences, but there was always the curious mental phenomenon that parallel with our sound reasoning, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The insane idea won out. Next day, we would ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity how it could have happened.
So one of the things, Brad, I'm not sure if you did this last week, guys, but I think it's important to just point out that Bill Wilson here in this chapter in particular refers to the mental obsession or the insanity or the thought that precedes me picking up a drink again. He refers to it in a lot of different ways, okay? And usually we'll write these things down, and every time one of them comes up, we'll kind of note it out. So desperate experiment is one of them. We talked about that. Insanely trivial excuse is another way to think about it, okay? He'll call it the peculiar mental blank spot, the peculiar mental twist, the insanity, the mental obsession, inability to distinguish the true from the false. In all of these cases, in all of them, please, guys, keep it simple. We're only talking about one thing: the insane thought that precedes me picking up a drink. And I have that thought not when I'm using, I have that thought when I'm sober, and the thought tells me to pick up the drink. I take the drink, and now I'm suffering from the physical craving, okay? Something that Joe and Charlie distinguish a lot. They say, if you have a sponsee and they're 3 months sober and they tell you, man, I'm really craving a drink, using the language of the big book, that's actually incorrect. The craving only starts once I begin drinking. That's when the craving starts. Anything before that is the obsession of the mind, the insane mental idea, the peculiar mental twist, the strange mental blank spot, the insanely trivial excuse. All reasons for drinking were easily pushed aside, whatever you want to call it. It's the thought that precedes the first drink, but the craving doesn't begin until I start drinking. Does that make sense, you guys? Yeah? Thumbs up? Yeah? All right, good. Let's keep going. Brad, thank you.
In some circumstances, we have gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. But even in this type of beginning, we're obliged to admit that our justification for a spree was insanely insufficient in the light of what always happened. We now see that when we began to drink deliberately instead of casually, there was little serious or effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific consequences might be.
So listen, guys, you will have sponsees for sure that are going to come to you and they're going to say, yeah, I don't know. Just like I did. I came and I said, yeah, that whole thing about this time it'll be different. And this time, I'll drink like a gentleman, man. I don't drink that way. Okay. That's long gone. When I drink suicidally, man. I'm ready to burn the house down when I drink. Okay. For us to drink is to die. Yeah, I hope I do. You can't scare me with death. I'm not afraid of death. I'm looking for death, okay? I drink, and so I was like, this book doesn't apply to me, this mental obsession. This paragraph, when you have a sponsee like that, and you will have guys come to you that say, I never think it's going to be different. I know I'm going to destroy everything, and I don't care. That's how I am. We bring them to this paragraph, okay? What does it say? When I begin to drink, sometimes we go out deliberately, feeling myself justified by anger, worry, depression, jealousy. Ever done that, fella? Do you go out? Yeah, I go out because I'm angry, or I go out because I'm depressed. I'm so depressed, and I don't want to commit suicide, so I just drink again. Yeah, I go out deliberately, feeling myself justified by depression. Great, I get it. But what our book says is even in this beginning, there's little serious or effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific or horrific consequences are going to be. Okay. And so just to say, guys, that's where we outline for that type of a sponsee when they come to you with that part in step one, and they say, I don't think it's going to be different next time. I don't believe any of that. I go crazy when I drink, and that's what I'm looking to do, and blah, 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 all that kind of bravado. Bring them here. You say, look, this is for guys like us, because I'm that way too. That's how I discovered this, because that's how I drink. And that's what I have to understand, is that there was little period of effective thought, and it's just another form of that mental obsession and that insanity. And I'm just looking for the relief. That's what I got to get. I got to find a sense of ease and comfort, and the only way I know to do it is to drink. Okay, now let's meet the jaywalker. And I think, guys, I'm just feeling this. I know I've gone on a little bit tonight. I'm not going to try to push through to the end of the chapter. I don't want to keep you guys all here late. So we're just going to go through the jaywalker. We'll pause there for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Don't jump off at the end of tonight, okay? Everyone stick around if you can. We're going to finish this reading. We're going to talk about the jaywalker. We're going to say the Lord's Prayer to finish up. And then my favorite part of the night, my favorite part of the week is always going around the room, going around the circle, or however you want to say it. Everyone, just introduce yourselves and let us know where you're from, man. We got people from all over the world here tonight. What an absolute blessing. So Brad, take us to the jaywalker, please.
Our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink as that of an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking. He gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. Up to this point, you would label him as a foolish chap having queer ideas of fun. Luck then deserts him, and he is slightly injured several times in succession. You would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. Presently, he is hit again, and this time has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. He tells you he has decided to stop jaywalking for good, but in a few weeks, he breaks both legs.
Okay, just like in the cycle, he's swearing off forever. That's it. I'm done. I'm never going to jaywalk again. Okay, and now here he is a couple weeks later, broken legs.
On through the years, this conduct continues, accompanied by his continual promises to be careful or to keep off the streets altogether. Finally, he can no longer work, his wife gets a divorce, and he is held up to ridicule. He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. He shuts himself up in an asylum, hoping to mend his ways. But the day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine, which breaks his back. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? You may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? We who have been through the ringer have to admit if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly. However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, we have been strangely insane. It's strong language, but isn't it true?
Strangely insane, brothers and sisters. And so that is that's the deal. And thinking about this too, like, I like the analogy of the headache and hitting myself in the head with a hammer, because there's something in it for me there. I can at least understand somebody. I can hit myself in the head with a hammer. Why? Because I got this headache, man. It's driving me insane. Okay, so at least in that sense, there's like something in it for the person hitting themselves in the head with a hammer, right? To get rid of that headache. But we watch this jaywalker analogy. It's like, what is the kick for this guy? Like, what is the upside for him in this jaywalking deal? It doesn't make any sense. Doesn't even seem to be a payoff of any kind. But and this is what I realized as I was thinking about it, from people outside of AA who were watching us, maybe family or friends or employers, doing this thing over and over and over again. They don't understand it either, because they don't understand what's really truly wrong with us. They don't, thanks Matesh, God bless. They don't understand the spiritual sickness, and they don't understand the extremely positive effect that alcohol has for us. They don't get that. So for them, from the outside looking in, it is exactly like watching this jaywalker just destroying himself for no reason. And it doesn't make any sense to them. And it doesn't make sense to them because they don't suffer from the spiritual sickness that we all suffer from. And they do not know the medicine that we get, the sense of ease and comfort, the relief that we get from taking a few drinks. They don't understand it because they don't have that problem. Okay. And so for them, I think it's a lot like just watching this jaywalker just destroy himself. And that's what's so hard for them to bear. Anyway, that's enough for tonight, guys. I love you all. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I will say for sure, I needed Jim Big Smoke. I'm glad to see you on the call tonight, man. You think I don't say I see you, man? I see you there, Jim Big Smoke. Glad to have you. I'll see you at PPG tomorrow night.
See you tomorrow. Yeah.
I needed this meeting tonight, guys. Okay, I really did. I needed to be with some drunks, man. I spent too much time with those normies out there today. Those people are crazy. Okay, you guys, you this is my family. And like when I say that, man, I could not mean that more sincerely. I love you all deeply, even those of you I've never met, even those of you who are on the study for the first time. This is my home and you all are my family, and I needed this meeting deeply. So thank you everyone for being here. As I said, we'll close with the Lord's Prayer. And then and don't jump off because we'll just kind of go around the room, as I said, and everyone just say hello and let us know where you're calling in from. Okay. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.